A huge problem has hit our society. Men have stopped thinking that they are kings. So what exactly do I actually mean by kings? Because, 99.9% of men will never be literal kings. They will never be kings of a country. They'll never be kings of a particular province. Around 60% of the men in today's society have children. And they're usually in family settings, and, well, since a lot of people here are for spiritual growth, then I presume you're probably interested in a family, unless you're doing the artsy-fartsy shit, in which case, why are you here? And even those who aren't interested in having a family, they will have spiritual children, because I suspect those who will remain single here will become priests and monks, as opposed to becoming gamers who sit at home and are neats for their entire lives. In light of this, it's important to remember that the family is a microcosm of the state, or in other words, the nation is a family of families. It has all the same functions. It has the law that comes from the mother, it has the wisdom that comes from the father, it has children who are there to honour their mother and father and to grow in love and in patience and in virtue. These things all need to be acknowledged because you are effectively running the microcosm of the state, and therefore you need to have skills in all those areas that matter. For example, go and look outside at the US, for example. The richest country by far on the planet. Now, what we also know is that the finances are a real fucking mess, and that it's about 20 trillion in debt. And this debt will eventually screw it over. Likewise with other families, you get very rich men who put large amounts into mortgages without ensuring that they'll pay for them. They don't track their finances. And so, regardless of the amount of money they earn, they end up getting stitched up because they're not organised, or they're too chaotic with the way they're spending things, or they're bringing up things like, like holidays or excursions. I mean, America's known for that particular one. And they can't pay for them. And so, what would solve this on a family level? Well, learning some double-entry bookkeeping. You can go and buy like a 50-page book on it, and you can learn it in like a week, and then you just make a budget every month. In addition to all of the things you have to know, you also have to have practical experience. You need to know how to deal with unpleasant situations, because it's ultimately going to be you that's going to keep the family going. That's how it's always been, and regardless of how hard the feminists will try, that's how it will be in the majority of settings anyway. There'll always be exceptional women. There'll be people like Deborah from the Book of Judges, but these are the exception and not the rule. So this needs to be taken into account in how we study and in how we do things. Thirdly, and most controversially, you have to choose a wife for more than just love. Love is obviously the baseline by which we pick wives and girlfriends. We wouldn't be with them if we didn't have deep, deep feelings for them. But there also needs to be taken into account the vices of the person and the virtues of the person. For example, King Solomon in the Book of Proverbs warns against quarrelsome women. You don't want a woman who's constantly fighting and trying to mess you around, because that will just destabilise the family. You also don't want a woman who is liable to slut it about. Because a lot of men fall in love with the stripper. A lot of men fall in love with the whore. The kind of girl that, does all those things that you quite like in a sensual way, but then she's kind of off on the inside. I'm sure everyone's met them. You don't want to marry the stripper, lads. That's as funny as it seems, but we all make mistakes. And so we always have to keep our brain active when we're in these relationships to determine whether or not this love goes somewhere that is helpful to us and our future children, or whether it isn't. And if it isn't, then we need to have the strength to cut it off. For example, with me, around about a year ago, I went out with a pretty attractive girl. Very attractive, blonde hair, lovely darkish eyes, very, very physically attractive woman, and quite a nice-tempered woman as well. But then, as I went out and dated her, I obviously felt feelings, but the libertine side started to come out. She was clearly very libertine in a sexual way. And so after that, and after some discussions about politics, which also is another thing you want to keep an eye on, I realised that it wasn't going to go anywhere, not because I couldn't get with her, she offered, but because I figured, well, long term this is not going to look good. Now, it expressed itself in a different way, in a more hindbrain reaction way, but I milled it over for a few weeks and I was like, yeah, not a good prospect, so I avoided. And most men nowadays, they'd be like, oh, she's a nice piece of ass, Well, we'll keep her around for a couple of months, or a couple of years. But we don't have time to waste because we want to establish ourselves. I'm going to go into a heck of a lot more detail, actually, this Saturday coming on a Q&A with a married man and a couple of other men, actually, who've experienced a lot of these sorts of women. So, for those who are after this, go and search up Q&A 2. Finally, you need to know when to act and how to act. Too many people nowadays are perfectionists. I've got a newsflash for you guys. Funnily enough, you're imperfect. Every single time you talk to a girl and the spaghetti has come out of your pockets and you look like mundane Matt, well, that's an example of your imperfection. Every single time you've gone into the gym and you've fucked up a squat to the point where you've dropped the squat bar on the floor like a fucking mong, that is an imperfection. Every time you've answered a question wrong on some sort of mathematics test, I don't know, fucking algebra or something, right? That's an imperfection. And yet people for some reason seem to think they can do things perfect. Even so-called perfect answers are imperfect. Because they are created by people who are imperfect. You need to get over the fact that you are imperfect and have humility, realise you'll never ever do anything perfect, and then just suck it up and do it anyway and try to do it well as you can. So basically what I'm saying is you should fail as much as possible. Every time that Stacey laughs at you for calling her a fucking femoid or whatever, right? Analyse it. Analyse it, make sure. It's like, right, why did she laugh at me? Why are these people laughing at me? Why did I drop the squat bar? Why did the spaghetti come pouring out of my pockets and I pee myself, right? Is it because I drank too much? Is it because I'm acting like an autist? Well, just analyse that and change what you're doing. And it will make you happy because wisdom makes you happy. Don't become one of these bitter old sods. Right? There's lots of them about. They'll cry about how gynocracy, hypergamy, right? Just play the fucking game, right? Play the fucking game. Because if you're never going to change gynocracy or hypergamy. You can sit there in your boxes in your room and do fucking nothing, right? Or you can man up and learn from it. And that's how men ultimately succeed. They stumble many, many times. And then they get back up every single time. For example, our blessed Lord Jesus Christ, a man who accepted what his Father willed, was flailed to the point of almost tearing the flesh of his back off, who had a crown of thorns embedded in his head so far that it penetrated through his skull, and who carried the cross. He still stumbled 3 times. He learnt from them and he ended up getting help from Simon of Cyrene, but these physical weaknesses are innate to man, even in their absolute perfect sinless state. So take that example and run with it. Fail as many times as you need until you learn, and adapt perfect humility, wisdom, and be careful with the women that you choose to love. I hope this has been useful, and if I've offended anybody, then go into the comments and tell me. Thank you very much for listening. A very big thank you to those on the list here. These are subscribers to the Renaissance Man program who get audio books and controversial videos every week for $5 a month. There's already quite a lot of content there, so if you check it out in the description, you won't be missing out. Thank you.